Hello, and good afternoon. I'm Unica Walcott, the host of Career Conversations, and today I am beyond excited to present to you all Gia McKee. She is the owner of Guided Innate Aware. It's a life coaching company, and we're going to talk today about her journey to becoming a life coach, and maybe a little bit about the background and how we know each other so well. So again, thank you all for viewing the show. I hope you have a good time and that you were able to connect and learn some amazing things from Gia today. She's the owner of Guided Innate Aware. Gia, welcome to the show.
It's like, hi, just kidding.
Right? Like I clicked the button, it was like, nah. Well, you're here, and I'm glad that you have agreed to be a part of this journey with me. So thank you so much. I want to say hello to everybody watching on YouTube and LinkedIn and Facebook this morning. Thank you all
Hi,
so much for
everyone.
joining us. Okay, so in true career conversation style, I like to jump right into the conversation. And so, when you tell your family that you are a life coach, what do they think you do?
Hmm. They think I tell people what to do.
Just what to do? Like, okay,
Yeah.
go over here.
No, it's not about telling people what to do. It's about quieting the brain so they can feel what their next move should be. We have this really conditioned habit of letting our brain take the lead. And your brain is just a manifestation of all of your experiences and memories. So you have to be careful depending on what your life path has been. That can be a really dark place that you're getting your future instructions from.
Yeah, look, someone said already. It's Antonio Rosado. He says, "Mom slaying, hi." So, and people are reacting. It's good. Thank you all so much. Hi, Antonio. Hi, Anna. She said, "Look beautiful." So
Thank
we got some people watching and checking out already. So, and somebody already responded, said, "Great answer when we talked about what you actually do."
you.
So people are engaged, and so you said a lot of people kind of approach kind of life from like this place of like their mind and not really the heartfelt center of being. Is that what I'm getting, or am I not understanding?
A lot of times the heaviest conversation I have, because you never want to devalue anything. But I'm asked, what's the difference between life coaching and therapy? And I've had both. And in my opinion, the therapist has boxes. They're looking to diagnose you. I'm not looking to diagnose you. I'm not looking to judge you. I am looking to deal with the thoughts that are within your subconscious that are actually keeping you from seeing your efforts come to fruition. I introduced a concept in the journal called the BBR, which I call the Brain Book of Reference. And it was actually a life experience. I realized that what my brain was saying and what my energy was feeling were two different things. And it kind of bugged me out because I've always thought that I was my brain and my brain is me. And
Hmm.
now we're just not. My brain is a part of my system, which I sometimes reference, but I try to stay away from the auto response because it normally comes from fear.
Now that makes sense. The auto responsive fear, our brain is kind of wired to keep us alive in a survival mode. And
Yeah,
so,
and it's challenging because you have to relearn who you are, not who you think you are or who you want to be, but who you actually are. And is that person based solely on your experience, or is it something that you nurtured? And there are
hmm,
so many things that we stop nurturing, and younger generations stop even sooner.
hmm.
And we kind of need to get back to okay, what am I thinking versus what I'm feeling? Am I thinking this because of what I'm feeling, or is this an actual logical thought?
Oh, that makes perfect sense. I get it, because there's times you're like, okay, well, is this person meaning to be malicious or harmful to me? Or did I make this up in my head based on previous experiences? Like, for example, that's something I've had to try to be mindful of.
Well, I was speaking to someone yesterday, and they didn't quite understand their reaction to an interaction that did not prompt the level of anger that they exude. And I asked, well, when you recall the memory, try to recall and pay attention to the thoughts that you insert that weren't an original factor in that memory. Like, your manager tells you to work overtime. And when you're sitting at your desk working the overtime because your manager says so, you're also inflicting certain statements upon yourself. Like, if I was braver, this is unfair. How come I never react to this? Those are the things that you want to pay attention to, the things that you insert into a memory that has already happened, because that is where your internal conversation is. And those are the thoughts that prompt your actions, not what's actually happening. So if a week before in your relationship you felt powerless, and now you're asked to do something you don't particularly want to do, but again, you feel powerless, you may actually have a reaction that is compiled from what happened to you last week that you couldn't react to and what's happening now. And maybe you're weighing your options. And the first thing I'm asked is, that takes too much time. It doesn't. It takes practice. And once you begin to practice, that time between you recognizing where that anger or sadness or whatever negative feeling is coming from gets a lot shorter. Your reaction time changes. You process it a lot quicker. And you're like, okay, that feeling has nothing to do with this situation. It has to do with some other stuff that happened to me. And I'm just going to smile and walk away.
And that's powerful, and being able to reclaim your time and your power by practicing.
We are definitely a little, I don't think it's a confusion.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's an intertwine of choices and habits. We no longer know the difference between a choice we made and a habit we allowed to come to fruition. I tell individuals all the time, that's not a choice, that's a habit. Do not blame yourself for the habit. Understand that any part of healing comes with not only self-acceptance of the things that you've done, but self-forgiveness. Stop being so hard on yourself. Because what person just gets back up after you beat them up? Why would you do that to yourself? If you are trying to find the strength and the foundation to step up and do better, why would you beat yourself first? You're not at your best energy.
Yeah, you're not. Yeah, so we got some comments. Someone said, I can imagine a lot of external pressures play in our thinking. They also posed the question, do you have tips on how to stop the reaction time? How do you stop your brain from going into overdrive?
I call myself out really quick. I completely call myself out. I was just having a conversation earlier this week where I was like, I'm going to need a second to process, because everything that came to mind was a reaction from an emotional place. It was not going to add to the situation I was faced with. It was merely going to throw me into reaction. And that's never quite, and it's okay to say, you know what? I just don't feel like addressing that right now. I don't have positive words, and I'm not going to expand this negativity. You can literally decide, I'm not going to expand this negativity. I'm going to walk away till I can do better. because I cannot control you, but I can control myself.
And that's powerful to have the self-awareness to go, look, I can't contribute to this in a positive fashion. Let me take a step back.
Uh, we come from a culture and a place that there are just hundreds of years of being attacked. Defensiveness is our norm. It shapes the way we trust, whether it's our community or outsiders. It really shapes the way you think and react. And until you start paying attention, most people are a little taken aback when I say the homework is to watch, to pay attention, and that's it. For the next week, I don't want you to react to anything. I just want you to watch, and I want you to pay attention to what you are feeling. And most importantly, I want you to pay attention to the assumptions that you are making from a person's thought process that you have no control over, not enough data to make proper assumptions. And most times when we're making assumptions about someone else's thoughts, we're inflicting our fears upon their thoughts. We're not reflecting the way they treat us, how much they love us, any of that in that moment. And that is why you have to walk away. It doesn't have to be a long break. It could be like, let me walk around the block for 1 second.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to talk to myself a little bit, find out why my blood is boiling. And I am talking myself out of a bunch of actions in my head. And I'm going to come back. And I'm going to come back with a more rational mind and a more stable emotional state, because that's where the magic happens.
Yeah, walking is magic for me too, for sure. This has resonated. Someone said, great tip. Try to separate the emotion from the reality of the situation. Someone else said, so true. I agree. The walk and the take, step back is where the magic happens. And something I've learned from you over the years, you're like, look, like, did that actually happen, or did you just kind of make that up? Or these assumptions in your head? Like, let's talk about it. And so I'm really, really excited to share you with other people and the gifts that you are now finally offering to the rest of the world. Like it is huge. I don't know if you guys have been following on LinkedIn, but this week I talked a little bit about my relationship with Gia. I met Gia back in 2012, I think it was.
Or, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So it was quite some time ago we met, and at one point she was actually, my supervisor and everything, and I was talking about making a move. And she was the person that kind of really said, look, there's nothing left for you. You need to take this leap of faith. And I'm going to tell y'all, I was terrified. But that was like the last installment on the faith, leap that I needed to make to live the life I live now. Like 7 years later, I can't believe how things have turned out. But without that, I don't know that it would have been possible. I had to step out of my comfort zone and reevaluate some of the things and realize that, like she mentioned earlier, the way things happen in the past aren't always the predictor of the future. You have to take a step back and really process where is it coming from.
I was having a conversation a few months ago now with my oldest, and I was trying to explain that I battle conditioning, whether it's from family, society, or the expectations of family and society. I said, when you look at the future, why do you have to look so far that it's dark? Why can't you just look at your next step, which is completely lit and a little less scary? So when I say we have to retrain our brain to see the difference between choice and habit, most of us aren't walking around making choices. We're walking around exuding habits. And some of those habits are not conducive
to where you want to be.
not to where you want to be or to who you are now. I mean, while many people that have been canceled needed to be canceled, there are some people that I'm like, oh, they're going to judge me on who I was 10 years ago. I was a completely different person 10 years ago. I didn't have the tools, the understanding. I had more hate than love acknowledged within me, not within me, but acknowledged within me. Why? Because that was my engine for a really long time. I threw myself into adult world really early, and being pissed off got things done. But what happens when you're no longer the employee, you're up for manager? You are now dealing with people that may or may not run on the same engine. You can't attack them with validation of their negative feelings. You, as a manager, you have to kind of bring them back to, while we don't want you to be a robot, there are definitely certain behaviors that we expect in a professional atmosphere. But also managers don't really speak like that.
No.
Which is a more empathetic way of getting an idea across to your employee.
By far.
If you leave it to me, I'll just keep talking and you won't ask any questions. So I'm gonna be quiet.
Yeah, I know. I'm enjoying what you're sharing so much, and I think that the audience is really resonated. But yeah, let's get into questions. Like, so what made you decide to become a life coach? Like, what was finally the push for you?
It was a chain of events. In 2012, my mom was diagnosed with breast cancer. And me living in Atlanta and her being in New York, there was this great space of separation. And my mom and I were really close. I actually tried to feel bad about decisions I made when her diagnosis were not even on the cusp of life. That's insanity.
Yes.
I've been here since 2003. You're going to go back 10 years to grab a rock and hit yourself? Really? That's what we're choosing to do? So rather than fully jump into that pool of just feeling bad, I started listening to Wayne Dyer and Goddard and Abraham Hicks, and it was literally all I listened to. I needed to create a space of learning, which now I know I actually reverted to my youth because I grew up as a latchkey kid with books. I was reading all the time. That was my comfort level. My mom had always tried to influence me in being a kinder, more empathetic person. Yet the view that I had of the side effects of that behavior at that age wasn't positive.
Yeah.
Like, those people get taken. Why do you want me to be that person? As I've gotten older, I realized that in stepping out in kindness and empathy, you change the world. You change your world. You don't quite come across so many character attacks and personality attacks. And when you see it, you immediately recognize it. So you're able to shift and say, okay, this is not my pain. This is a side effect of that person's pain. And I'm just going to stay over here. I think my greatest battle in this journey has been recognizing judgment. We are taught to judge from very young. From the jokes between cousins about hair or outfit, or, you imagine little 3, 4-year-old walking around listening to all this commentary, it becomes normal. No one sits you down and gives you a lesson on judgment. You pick it up. The challenge comes when you want to stop. People have a much easier time dealing with me making the statement, you can no longer gossip, when I explain to them that gossip actually has an effect on their financials, not necessarily their reputation or their likes on social media, but it weirdly hinders you financially. It boomerangs to your financials. It doesn't boomerang to what you can see coming. And all of a sudden they can embrace it. And sometimes I get really rough about it because I'm faced with a situation and they're asking my opinion, but it's not my situation and I don't have enough data.
Right.
But we're gossiping is what we're doing because we're entertaining ourselves with someone else's issue by debating and gathering details that is fundamentally none of our business. It's a distraction, it's a waste of time, and it is a negative injection into your vibration. And that may lead to something else. So you want to nip it in the bud when you feel it. But first, you have to look at it. You have to recognize it. I really need water.
Oh, that's good. So you're taking a sip, and someone had a question I wanted to put out there. Someone said, "Is it okay to say I'll see where life takes me instead of looking into the future?"
It's a journey. It is perfect to have faith in your hard work, your efforts, your prayer. It is perfect to know that you are doing what you feel will blossom into what you want and not insert anxiety into it. You know, from the time we were young, it's all on God's time. We've never committed to that clock. We've always wanted things instantly. So, yeah, you have to take a step back. I'll see where it takes me. Or as Abraham Hicks says, everything always works out for me. The bottom line is you don't know if it's going to work out or not work out, but you don't have to spend a bunch of time on and energy on imagining how it doesn't work out.
No, that's true.
That's a choice. But it is not a choice until you recognize the habit of imagining worst case scenarios, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so it's a habit, and then when you stop to take the awareness, like you said, spend the week observing, and then you can kind of come into consciousness about what's going on in your life, and then you could go, okay, I'm aware that I'm doing this thing habitually. Now I get to choose. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, like, you know what? I've been feeling bad about a memory I can't even bring to light anymore. But I approach everything I do with a memory I cannot recall. You recall the emotion, you don't recall the actual energy. And it leaks into everything in your life. It becomes your pattern. So once you start paying attention to your pattern, you'll see things you like. You'll see things you don't like. You'll see things you don't like, but are definitely necessary for certain life battles. So while you don't want it to be a part of your daily armor anymore, you definitely want it in your bag of tricks. Because life is just not that simple.
No, it's not. It's a combination of things. I'm like, she's over here preaching to me today. So what advice would you give to somebody who was interested in becoming a life coach or?
Heal yourself. I went to, I've seen 2 therapists and a spiritual guide in the past 3 years. And each one of them has opened up a different part of me that I didn't know was there. So you can't help someone with a full tray. You've got to pay attention to your stuff first. And no matter how perfect you think your assessment is of someone else's situation, there's definitely work for you to do that can help without judgment. Judgment, I think, is my key word. It's like we've got to stop judging so harshly.
Judging ourselves, judging each other.
We judge everything. But as people of color, we come from a place of fear in this country. Like, it just is. Whether you're talking about slavery, or you're talking about the police, or you're talking about corporate America, there's a bunch of fear. And I find it interesting that a lot of us don't ask, okay, am I actually in a bad place? Or am I just filled with bad memories and expectations? And it's just coming back at me.
Am I actually in a bad place?
Yeah. Because not everything sounds the same. It could be the same exact sentence, and depending on your mood, it can sound like a compliment. It could sound like an attack. It could sound like a threat, depending on your mood. I mean, you ever smile at a person in the street and they roll their eyes? And you're like, really?
Has nothing to do with you, though.
But we tend to judge that person rather than say, oh, God bless her. She couldn't receive a smile.
Like, things got to be rough.
Positivity.
Yeah.
So God bless her. May she work that out. May he work that out.
Yeah. Someone said it's hard not to judge ourselves. Yeah.
It is. I like to say it is challenging to relearn how to see ourselves with greater empathy. Again, it's a habit. You want to transition from habit to choice. There are times that I do things that I'm like, girl, you're supposed to have a functioning brain. Woo.
Yeah, I've definitely had those moments in life too. It's like, you did what? But why though?
And sometimes I laugh, especially if it's a past event. I laugh because there's nothing I can do to change that except do better or do different. And then I can move forward. I laugh a lot at myself.
Me too. You see me laugh at myself even here. If you watch the show, and I would goofing some stuff up and I'll just bust out laughing. And I'm like, well, see what happens.
Like, that happened.
Yeah. I was like, well, now I learned something new. I didn't know I could screw that up too. It's usually my response.
But you know, that's compounded with how much loss you've experienced in your life, how much support you've had in your life. There's so many different variables that form a personality that it's one of the main reasons why I like life coaching, because life coaching is not about a bunch of psychological diagnosis that I have to write down symptoms and kind of place it into the box. I can approach each individual as a unique situation. And that is probably the most gratifying about life coaching.
That's the part you love, is being able to go, look, this is this person. Let me view them from their whole being and not like, these are the symptoms I'm seeing. Okay, this aligns with this diagnosis, but maybe it's not that sort of engagement or conversation. We're not looking for new titles or labels. We're like, okay, how do we teach you the skills so that you can come to your own solutions?
Yeah, definitely. All our answers are within us. We just kind of edge you in asking the questions that you are not willing to ask yourself. And yes, there are some of those, no matter who you are. There are some questions you will not ask yourself. You do not want the answer, and you are okay with that until that question needs to be answered in order for you to move forward. Then it becomes an issue.
This is true.
Yeah,
This is true. So we've talked a little bit about like what your family thinks you do and how they think you tell people what to do and you boss them around. That's really not how this works here. You're more of a guide, and that's kind of where guided, innate, and aware comes from. Can you tell me a little bit more about guided, innate, and aware? Like, how did you come up with the name for your company?
I did not come up with the name for my company. One of my very best friends, Kristen Williams, I actually called her end of the month, and our 9 to 5 was the mortgage business.
Yeah.
And mine still is. But she said, look, I'll call you back. I do not have time for this right now.
Oh, not your bestie. That's less hard.
Ow. The next morning, she called back and she was like, girl, guided, innate, aware. The acronym is Gia. You good. Bye.
Oh, man.
Look, that's always been like how we roll.
Yeah.
What do you need? Okay, here it is. Gotta go. We've always been there for each other, but definitely carved out our individual spaces. So while it was a little moment to breathe, it wasn't really panic mode because I knew when she called back the next day, we were either going to troubleshoot or she was going to have something.
Well, she didn't waste any time.
Mm-hmm. I loved it. And I was able to really step up from that foundation because when she said it, it resonated with me. And when you get on a more spiritual path, you stop looking for validation and tangibility to certain situations. You are okay with it just being. You're okay with, that worked out. I didn't even touch it, and that worked out.
Yeah, I've seen that so much in my own life lately. I'm like, well, you're trying to figure out how to negotiate this schedule in this situation. Then took my hands out of it, said, look, I can't do nothing about it, and it works out.
I've told people, stop lying about your faith with God. Ooh. Give it to him and leave it there. Stop questioning him after you walk away. Like, just stop doing that. 1 foot in, 1 foot out. If you give it to God, give it to God.
Yeah.
And walk away.
Someone said, okay with just being. I love this.
Yeah. We've had the conversation about the position that women have been put in this new modern world. Yes, we have the ability to go out and get educated and have a career. And wait a minute, who's going to do all the other stuff?
Yeah, like laundry.
I have to cook. I still have to do laundry. I still have to raise children.
Grocery shop.
Is there a book that compiles everything? No, I got to wing it. No wonder I'm tired. It's a wonder I'm tired. Because we fought for the things, yet didn't address our innate selves. And eventually, we're full. Because we are strong, and we do try to do everything till we can't. And then we get a bit stuck. And hopefully we have a circle of friends
that calls you and says, hey girl, some of that ain't gonna get done and it'll be all right.
Yeah.
Like, you had to take out for dinner, good job. Like, everybody ate.
Yep, pretty much.
Yeah, so we had a question, actually. This one's from Anna. She says, How do you advise we start to heal ourselves, or where do we start to transition from memory to choice? I think you talked a little bit about that previously.
You watch, you pay attention to your actions. You really pay attention to the thoughts you inject into a situation that you won't let come out of your mouth, but you will allow to repeat over and over again in your head. Like, it doesn't matter that it didn't come out of your mouth. The words that are coming out of your mouth are coming out with the energy of those messed up thoughts that you're choosing to push back. You just start paying attention. Once you start paying attention, you will be able to see it. Just takes a minute. I mean, I've definitely had situations where I'm like, woo, I have way too many tools to have had that reaction. But I was either caught off guard, it was more than personal, like my children. Like, that's more than personal.
Yeah.
The life coaching goes out the window. The New York hood comes back in, and
You said, look, I go to New York on my kids sometimes.
it can happen, but it happens a lot less, and it happens eventually more in your mind than in real life. And you want to, Wayne Dyer used to say, stop planting cucumbers expecting tomatoes. Or stop planting tomatoes expecting cucumbers. I can't remember verbatim, but that resonated really deeply with me, because you can't squeeze a cucumber and get tomato. You can't. In order for you to have a happier, more peaceful, more loving life, you have to come from a happier, more peaceful, loving place. If it's not within you, how are you going to put it out in the world, and much less get it back?
Oh, that's a really, really good question. If it's not in you.
You
and
you
you talked about self-awareness so that you can cultivate the habit of making better choices.
Definitely, there is a mental conversation that you are having with yourself, that if you were having that same conversation with a stranger, you'd be in a fist fight.
Oh
How
yes,
dare
I said
that
this to somebody
person-
like a week ago. I was like, the way you would talk to yourself, like if you said that to somebody else, they would swing on you.
Like, why are you talking to me like that? But we talk to ourselves like that all the time, and pretend that it either does not affect us or that we don't hear it, because we don't want to acknowledge it. So we have to pay attention to those thoughts. We have to pay attention to, where did that come from? Is that my opinion?
Yeah. So now, Mignon, I've seen your question too. I'll get to it. This is one from LinkedIn user says, I love the conversation. What do you say to people that really need therapy? Like you mentioned, we're an amalgam of our past. Maybe they need a deeper understanding.
Definitely seek therapy.
Yes.
And you don't have to commit to 2-3 years of therapy. If you are open, because a lot of us show up at therapy and we pretend that we can lie to the therapist the way we lie to ourselves. That's a waste of time. Go to therapy and address your real thoughts and feelings. There is a professional in front of you whom you are paying
Yes.
to aid. Allow them to help.
Yeah.
Therapy is very important. I definitely
therapy works.
That many of us, as I said, and my therapist had a great time with me, because I was so ready for her to show me all the things I could do better, and for her to show me where my mind was saying one thing, but my reality was saying something else. But because I have always been in a position of control, I would weirdly reformat the memory to fit my reality, to keep my place of control. And we had a good time.
Yeah, I tell people, like, look, I've had a life coach and a therapist at the same time on several occasions in life. It makes a difference to kind of have those conjoining perspectives. And I always share with them, like, I've got this and this going on, so they have context for what's going on as well. But yeah, I think both are useful tools, and you kind of really have to just be honest with yourself about what kind of assistance you need. And so
I went to a spiritual therapist that was a life changer. And one of the first exercises she had me do, which I also incorporate into my coaching for healing, is the childhood letter. You start from 7, 8 years old, and you are retelling your life to this person. But you retell it with love, forgiveness, and you reassure them that everything will be okay. And I think it took me 2-3 weeks to write it, because it sounds like, yeah, I'm gonna just write. You'd be surprised how many things and experiences you just either moved to the side because you didn't want to deal with it, or it was too painful, or you were too angry. And you start writing those things down, and you start putting the effects of it and what manifested from it, or how you thought it was a big deal, but it really turned out that it wasn't, or how you didn't feel validated because you were a child, and how you have been functioning in the need for the validation of that thing that happened when you were 8 years old. And what that does is it allows you to once again revisit that experience. And I don't have an eraser. There is nothing I can erase that has happened in your life. But I can teach you how to package it up a little neater, acknowledge that it's there, and put it away. And create a lot more room, because those things take up so much room in your ability to truly see your emotions and to be empathetic towards others. And those are the two things that you really need to heal: empathy towards yourself and empathy towards others. So if you start repacking those things, making them smaller, you're no longer carrying luggage. Now you got a little backpack. Yeah, I had some stuff going on in my life, but it's handled.
that makes sense, to be able to reframe and repackage things. And so to that, I wanted to bring up Mignon's question. He said, what does forgiveness look like for you, both internal and external?
Whew.
Yeah, great question.
That was a long journey. I'm not from this country. I was brought here when I was 8. When my mom and I originally came, I was separated from my brothers, which were my superheroes most of my life. So that was difficult. 2 months later, my mom had another transition, and she had to send me to another city. Now we're in a new country. I'm learning English. Now I have to be separated from my mom. And she sent me to her cousin and her husband and their 2 daughters. So that was a lot of shift. But I came from a place where complaining, asking too many questions, all of that was seen as disrespectful. So I internalized the hurt and the anger of that separation. And for a really long time, I had not revisited that period in my life. So I had to come to grips with the fact that my mom did what she knew at the time would bring resolve to whatever current situation we were in, which I didn't have information about because I was a child.
Right. You don't know.
So you learn to understand
Yeah.
that at the end of the day, it was the best she could do with the resources she had. And forgiveness comes on its own because it stops being such a burden. You
Yeah.
stop being mad at it.
Yeah.
You crying already?
Yes, yes. I mean, I made it like a whole whopping 45 minutes. I'm actually proud of myself. I thought it was going to be like 5, 10 minutes and I'd be in here crying. Yeah, no, I relate to that story so much as I think about, well, I didn't move to another country after learning another language, but kind of being away from family and that sort of support and moving, from one state to another and literally counting the miles down on a map and getting to like 800 and going like, it doesn't even matter. It's a million in my mind now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, this journey is amazing. And when you begin to heal and you're walking through the streets and you see a color of relief that you've never seen before, and you can kind of take that in, you begin to see the beauty in life when you repack, when you make your stuff just a little bit smaller and less heavy to carry.
Yeah. Yeah. This is resonating with people. Someone said it's no longer a burden to forgive yourself. Wow, that's heavy.
It's we function in a lot of fear. And for lack of a better word, we renamed it manning up.
Ooh, yes, yes, yes.
But now we're pushing through fear.
Yeah, and it's ugly and it's
And,
uncomfortable.
and the power is so different when you're not trying to be right, you're not trying to prove wrong, you're just trying to come to a place of understanding. The power in that is phenomenal.
Yeah.
I tell people sometimes, you want to be entertained? Wait till you're paying attention to your thoughts and you can actually, in your head, just have the conversation with a person, know exactly what is going to come out of their mouths, know exactly what they're going to say to prompt a little reaction out of you, and you just see it. And you go, there it is. Yeah, but I'm a different kind of woke now because I can't just see you and judge. I can see myself and forgive. I don't have to.
Yeah. Yeah. So we have talked about forgiveness, what it looks like to forgive yourself. We've talked about how you have some exercises you walk people through. If people want to get in touch with you, where can they find you?
My website is Guided Innate Aware, and I just completed my Practical Positivity in 90 Days journal. And what it is a 12-week exercise in learning how to retrain those thoughts, in paying attention to the woulda, coulda, shoulda, if I would have chosen different words, if I would have checked my emotions before reacting. It gives you the examples. One of the things that I found on my journey was that most of the people that are out there are pushing mindsets that are foreign to us. And by us, I mean people of color. Because it's like, no, it so doesn't work like that in my world. Like, that smiling crap can really bring some negative stuff to you in certain environments. So smile when you're at work. It's different when you're coming from a place that smiling can prompt someone to follow you to the subway station, like the
Yes.
whole way.
Yes,
Or
the whole way. I had to learn that,
come to
like
a
going to
young
New York
lady
one
to come
summer.
at you because why are you smiling at my man? You know, it's a little. It's the world is it's a little bit different. So I wanted to bring the language and the experiences that we can actually look at and say, yeah, I've seen that in my life. Not detail to detail, but I could see how I had the same exact reaction based from growing up, having it hammered into me that you cannot be a soft person.
Right.
And it's not just that you can't be a soft person, it's that you don't actually get a definition of what soft things are. So, depending on who you are in front of, all of a sudden, that more mature, older thing you did yesterday is frowned upon over here because it was soft. A lot of that conversation has to change. And when you start to heal, you start to see it. You start to see the friend that doesn't necessarily share her misery, but just implants enough into your thought process that you begin to judge her situation. Misery spreads that way also. They don't have to stay and keep company with you. They could just drop it, and your thoughts will do the rest of the work for them. So you got to bob and weave a lot of that. But it's fun because you're like, this is easy. Why was I that person for so long? No one tapped you on the shoulder. We've talked about that. No one taps you on the shoulder and says, hey, I get it. You needed that armor when you were in that place. But now you are in this place.
You got to shed that.
You have to shed that if you would like to move forward. That's very different from, ew, you hood.
Very different, but people don't understand that. And I talk about that a little bit with people I'm mentoring. I'm like, look, when you step into corporate America and the space, there's words you got to choose because they don't understand where you're coming from, or it's just your way of being. Like it's a different process. Like, and that's not something that I feel like school prepares you for. It's usually not something your family prepares you for, especially if they don't have that sort of background or
the same
experience
pain
themselves.
Mm-hmm. It's usually the same pain, the same disappointment in giving 110% to your job and still not getting promoted, still not getting a raise.
Paid fairly.
Bitterness. That can definitely plant some bitterness, and you transfer that to your child. You don't sit them down and tell them about corporate America and how bad it is. But in the environment, comments are made. And children pick that up. And they learn to fear situations that may not even come to them.
Yeah. They may never exist. Yeah. So we've talked about how you coach. We've talked about why you coach and your favorite parts of kind of tapping people on the shoulder and helping them to wake up to things. What is something you wish you knew before becoming a life coach?
Before becoming a life coach. See, I don't think that way anymore.
Okay.
So it's not a thought process I would give energy to.
Okay.
I have come to believe that everything leads you to where you want to go. Whether you make a move that now takes you 2 months to get to where you want to go instead of the 1 week that you thought you were going to get there. everything is connected and has meaning. And the more you walk with forgiveness, the faster you see the lesson. Like, there are definitely some people that you are going to encounter that are merely lessons in self-reflection. Nothing to do with them and everything to do with you. Something that you thought you had grown from, and you lied to yourself. Because here we are again. This is where you break the habit and you make the choice of a different reaction. And that's where the magic happens.
Making magic. So, is there anything that I have not asked or that I have not shared that you'd like to share?
I don't know. This was the fastest hour ever.
I know, right? I was like, wait, it's been an hour? Like, I'm looking, I'm like, okay, this was quick.
Yeah. Everyone should have the opportunity, give themselves the opportunity to walk through life guided, innate, and aware, which again, www.guidedyinnateaware.com. That's my website. And it is the beginning to the most exhilarating journey. When you see the journey, when you evolve from living life as if it is something that was inflicted upon you.
Who say that?
And your favorite, joy is a lot quieter than happy made it out to be.
A lot.
A lot. It's just so much quieter, but really joyful when you can deeply be happy for someone without having any involvement or anything to do with it. It's a gift. And we do not always see life as a gift because we have the habit of looking at what's lacking. So if you take nothing away from today's interview, teach yourself the difference between a habit and a choice. You always want to have a choice. I don't like to be led by anyone, much less my past. And
powerful. So look, always
let's breathe on that.
Make a choice, right? Let's breathe. Thank you so much for sharing your journey with me and how Guided Innate Aware was born. I'm still laughing at Kristen, and she's like, "Look, just I don't have time. I'll call you back."
So rude and short. It was very hurtful.
Oh man. So thank you again. If you hold for me for a second, I'm going to let everybody know who's coming next week and where they can find you on the internet. If you want to get in touch with Gia, guidedinnateaware.com. It's right there on your screen. So if you've not gotten a chance to jot it down, there it is. This is also going to be available for replay. So if you missed something, you want to rewatch it and really just kind of meditate on some of what you learned here today, it is available to you. You guys can find all the information on uniquewalcott.com. You can follow Gia on Instagram. Her business Instagram is Guided Innate Aware on Instagram. Feel free to reach out to her, get in touch. Thank you all so much for being a part of Career Conversations. I'm your host, Unica Walcott, and next week I've got Joseph Akins. He is a manager at a Big Four accounting firm, and we're going to talk about his career journey. So love y'all. We'll be back next week. Thank you so much. Noon on Saturdays is Career Conversations. Thanks, Gia.